Hello and welcome. My name is Lexi Jong, and here I like to talk about luxury beauty. Last week I did a video with first impressions of some new items such as the new Hermes powders, and I wanted to follow up on those, and I figured let's go ahead and do another get ready with me style follow-up now that I've been using these items for a week. So we've got some products that are new to me today, and such as the eyeshadow. But then we also have a follow up with thoughts and some little like wear test type things with other products from before, such as the Hermes powders. So let's go ahead and get started. And we're going to start off with base products. So today, what I'm using on my face for a face primer is the Dior Forever Skin Veil Primer. I've talked about this primer a lot. You can see here in the demo that it is tinted. It's kind of got this like peachy tint to it. On my fair skin, it still works. It doesn't really show up, maybe a little bit, but nothing that causes any sort of issue. I feel like it's totally fine that it's tinted. Now, this primer does have sunscreen in it. It gives a little bit of illumination, a little bit of blurring. You can kind of see that when I put it on my skin. And really the main thing for this for me is that it's hydrating. So it adds hydration to my skin, yet it does not have any issues with whatever foundation I pair it on top of. It improves longevity of the foundation, and it really just makes a nice, more dewy kind of finish. So for eye primer, I'm using my standard, the Viseart Seamless Eye Primer, which is my favorite. This gives a thin silicone layer to the lid so that things go on very smoothly. Now that I'm getting older and my lids are a little bit more wrinkly, I feel like a primer like this that's a little bit more smoothing works best for me. Plus, the Viseart primer really does work to extend longevity of shadows and prevent creasing. So I don't have a huge issue with that. My lids aren't super oily, but I do often experience creasing by the end of a long day without a primer. Whereas if I use the Viseart, I don't typically have any creasing. Next, we are testing out the Dior Backstage Concealer. I've been wearing this for a few days, so I do have another clip here that I will show you with a finger application versus brush application. I feel personally like the brush application looks a little bit smoother. So in today's clip, I have brush application for both, but you can see that this time I'm using more of a flat concealer style brush compared to the fluffier Sonia G Fusion brush that I used in the first demo. So today's brush is the Surratt concealer brush. And I feel like this is actually a really nice concealer. You can see I will have a wear test for the foundation, kind of in the next segment here. And you can see the concealer then and how well it performs after a long day. It really holds up. So this is considered to be a high coverage concealer according to Dior. It's supposed to give you a natural glow finish. It's crease proof, waterproof. I have to say, I think it did really well with, not creasing throughout the day. I really didn't have creasing, maybe like a tiny bit after 12 hours, but nothing noticeable. I definitely didn't have product gathering in the lines under my eyes. So that's definitely great. I think there is a little bit of a luminous finish to it. Nothing too luminous. It's not like striking or noticeable or anything, but it adds some brightening under the eyes. However, I don't think that this is a high coverage concealer. So you can see in today's clip where I have one eye done versus one eye not done yet, and you can kind of see the level of coverage that 2 coats provides. I would consider this more of a medium coverage concealer. My circles under my eyes are not that bad. So for somebody who has some that are worse, I feel like this concealer is going to only help a little bit. I feel like a full coverage concealer, like a true full coverage concealer, would hide pretty much everything. And I can still see my circles after 2 coats. They are definitely faint. They're not noticeable. It doesn't bother me, but I definitely think that it's more medium coverage. That being said, I do really like it. I have this in shade 0CR. So one of the things I like about this is the brush applicator. So it comes with a brush applicator. Honestly, I like the brush because, well, I like brushes, but at the same time, I'm not gonna apply it with that because even like just kind of wiping it off, I feel like I just get a little bit too much product and kind of like embed it in the bristles. So I still just kind of put it on there and I use a separate brush. I know that's kind of like overkill, but I typically don't like to use a lot of concealer. And in today's clip, I used more than I usually do. Now, that being said, this is the shade 0CR. I think this is a really great color for me. And let's just do a couple quick comparisons. So we're just going to compare a few items here. This is the Cle de Peau Radiant Corrector for Eyes in the shade Ivory. Now, this shade is a little bit deep for me, so I always make sure I put it on underneath foundation. This is one of the best concealers, though. I really love this one. You can see color-wise, though, that the Dior is going to be lighter, brighter, and slightly peachier, whereas the Cle de Peau is actually more like beige. Just for comparison, this is the Cle de Peau Stick Concealer in Ivory. So you can see it's slightly deeper than the Radiant Corrector. And again, it still has more of those beigey tones, but it is a little bit peachier than the Radiant Corrector for Eyes. A couple other comparisons. We have the Tom Ford shade Illuminate, and this one is in 0 and 0 Blanc. So I put that one right here. You can see it's not quite as peachy. It's about as light, but this has more yellow instead of the peach. So it actually looks a little bit lighter on the skin just because of the tones, at least on my skin, than the Dior. And then we have the Chanel. This is the Look Corrector de Chanel in BR02. I think this is a really great shade. Let's put this one kind of right here. So you can kind of see that that is going to be closest to the Dior in 0CR. So the Dior is going to be just a little bit lighter than the Chanel, and it's a little bit brighter. There's a little bit more brightening. It's almost as though the little bit more white in it than the peach compared to the Chanel. And just to note, the Chanel's actually slightly rosier than the Dior as well. And next we have the Suqqu The Liquid Foundation. And this was gifted to me from Suqqu. This is shade 105. I have to say I was going to buy this foundation anyway, and then they sent me an email. So it's like, yay. These are still swatches from the Chanel L'Extrait lipsticks. They don't want to go away. But this is the foundation. So we're going to leave this here while we talk a little bit about the clips. So I have a couple clips here to show you. I've only worn this twice. So the first application, we have a 12-hour wear test here. So you can see when I'm applying this, I'm using this over the Surratt Perfectionist Primer, which is a more matte primer. It really gives a great base, very smooth, and just there's no dryness, but there's no additional like tackiness or stickiness or dewiness or anything either. So it just gives you a nice silky skin canvas. And you can see that the foundation goes on beautifully. I really like the way the foundation goes on. Texturally, it's a buildable medium coverage foundation. I would say you can get up to like a true medium coverage. If you put on one layer, you've got more of a light medium. So, light to light medium. So I think it's a really nice finish. You can see that it really adds coverage, blurring, and it really helps kind of disguise those pores. It kind of shrinks your pores a little bit, this foundation. So I think it looks really beautiful on the skin. I personally always use brushes to apply the foundation. And I think this particular formula, it's going to be not as thin as a true serum foundation, but not as thick as something like the cream foundation. So it's kind of a light to medium texture. It's very lightweight on the skin. Most comparably from what I have gathered so far, to me, in formulation, it seems the most similar to the Koh Gen Do Aqua formation in not only in texture, but also in finish. Now, I don't think that the finish looks the same on the skin for the two of them, but I do feel like that's probably the closest out of the foundations that I have. They both kind of give you this perfected look. However, the Koh Gen Do gives you more of this melted in kind of appearance. And I believe, it's more melted in, more perfected. Whereas the Suqqu, I think, is more of a natural perfection. So if you're familiar with the Koh Gen Do Moisture Foundation, that one I feel gives a very natural look to the skin, but perfects it. And that's like kind of a thicker consistency, a little bit creamier, moussier. I feel like this Suqqu foundation has a finish a little bit more like that on the skin mixed with the Koh Gen Do Aqua. So if you were to kind of take, you know, attributes of both of those and put those together, that's kind of what this Suqqu liquid foundation is. Texturally, it feels like the Aqua. Finish wise, it's probably more like 75% the Koh Gen Do Moisture and 25% the Koh Gen Do Aqua on the skin. So I think it's a really beautiful foundation. Performance so far has been really good, as you could see from this 12-hour wear test. So as you can see, the Suqqu foundation did not wear as well using the Dior primer underneath. The side that uses the Dior primer, Suqqu foundation, and Hermes powder has seemed to have not held up as well. And you can see on my nose where I didn't really have any powder. Now, I have been blowing my nose because it's allergy season, but you can see that the foundation's pretty much gone, but it has gathered in certain pores. The side with the Chantecaille powder does look better, but it looks a bit dry. Overall, I think it looks kind of patchy, and I think that's because this foundation is not the best choice with this Dior primer. Okay, so after playing with the foundation even more, I feel like I just need to have more testing before giving you a final opinion on the Suqqu liquid foundation. I think it looks really great with the Surratt Perfectionist primer. Did not work out so well with the Dior primer, the Forever Skin Veil primer. And with the Cle de Peau Brightening Enhancer Veil, I think it looks okay. Like, I still think the Surratt looks better. It can look a little bit patchy with the Cle de Peau, but not to the point where it did with the Dior, where it actually seemed to separate and kind of like I lost foundation, so it came off. So I feel like this might be like a little finicky, and perhaps I need to play with different application methods as well as different primers and see what works best. So final thoughts on that Suqqu foundation we'll have in a separate video, but these are kind of some first impressions so you can kind of see what it looks like, what the colors look like, and so forth. I hope this was helpful. Now, as you're looking at this test, we're also looking at a few other items. So I tested the Hermes Plein Air powder in shade Nuage with this as well. And you can see here that putting the foundation, by the way, holds up well on both sides with and without the powder. But in the first demo, I have powder on my right side and no powder on my left side. And you can see that the powder itself gives you an additional blurring, and it's very silky, stays put. It really sets the makeup well. So I think this Hermes powder is great for setting. And you can see here in today's clip of the application that I've kind of gone through my powders, and the closest one I have to this on the skin is going to be the Chantecaille HD Perfecting Powder. So they have a similar texture. They're both very silky. If you're familiar with the Hermes blushes, the Hermes powder has kind of the same texture. It's that same silky feeling, and it's thin, it's lightweight. You don't need a lot of this powder, and it really does give you this nice blurring effect. I think the Chantecaille powder is similar on the skin, but looking at them closely, I do think the Hermes powder just looks a little bit better and feels a little bit more finely refined, essentially. Like the actual particles in the powder feel a little bit more finely milled than the Chantecaille. So it's just a little bit silkier in texture. With both of these, you don't need much, and the Chantecaille and the Hermes both give you a pretty similar blurring effect on the skin. I think they both perform really well. They're both fantastic. Please note the colors though. The Chantecaille is going to be kind of, I believe it comes in a couple shades as well, but the Chantecaille in this lightest shade that I have is going to be more of a light peachy tan kind of shade, whereas the Hermes is going to be a white powder. Now, it's undetectable on my skin color-wise, but I can't say that that's how it would be for people with deeper skin tones. So just some things to note, but I have gone through all of my powders, and I feel like this Chantecaille HD Perfecting Powder is the closest impressed powders that I have. So let's take a quick look at some other foundations. And this is the Suqqu, the cream foundation. And this one here is in shade 110, which is going to be a little bit deeper than this one here in 105. And let me just show you a fresh swatch of 105 so you can see the oxidation level of this as well. So here's 105. We'll put this right here. So you can see that the 110 and the 105 are actually pretty close, at first glance. But the 110 does dry a little bit deeper and just a little bit more golden in tone than the 105. The 105 is slightly more neutral. Now I have to say that I think in general, Suqqu foundations do tend to run a little bit warm. So honestly, their lightest rosiest shade is too deep for me. So that would be the 210. Yes, the 210. I have the 210 in the powder foundation, which I absolutely love. I really hope that they decide to make this in some other shades here, but let me just show you the 210 here. And this is their lightest rosiest shade. So you can tell that it's really not that rosy. It's a little bit less yellow and a little bit peachier, but I wouldn't say it's really rosy. And I have tried the liquids in the 210 as well. It kind of follows the same pattern there. Now, since we were talking about the Koh Gen Do Aqua foundations, let's take a look at these swatches here. This one here is shade 012. And you can see it's going to be peachier, less yellow. It's a little bit lighter as well. And then we also have 002, which is deeper than the 012. You can see that's going to be a little bit more yellow than the 012, but it's still a lot peachier than the Suqqu shades. Now, I know these swatches here, unfortunately, they're not coming off easily. It's been a few days, been scrubbing using different oil cleansers and makeup removers and everything. But those Chanel Luxury lipsticks, let me tell you, I left the swatches on my arm too long. That's what the problem is. If I had taken them off sooner, then they would not still be here now. But some of those lipsticks, they just really stay put. So, I think that's fantastic. So just a little aside there, those Chanel lipsticks are really, really good with pigmentation. If you want something to last all day, those work. So here we have the 105 from Suqqu in the liquid, 110 in cream, and this one here is the powder in 210. We have Koh Gen Do Aqua in 012 and Koh Gen Do Aqua in 002. Now let's take a look at the Hermes powder. I'm going to use my other arm here, but you can see that it's going to be a light sheer powder. I mean, it feels super silky. Well, let's try the hand maybe. It feels super silky on the hand. Look at that. You can see even like here that it's like blurring part of my skin, but it is a light white powder. So even though I can't see the color, the blurring effect does give just a little bit of a whitening effect to it, if that makes sense. So not that it looks white, it's just more like the way the light hits it. It's like one of those like skin brightening products. So just something to note. And then here's the Chantecaille HD Perfecting Powder. And I believe they have a deeper shade of this as well. But this is the light one. And both of these powders are made in Italy, by the way. But here's the Chantecaille. So you can see it's a little bit peachier. And you can see just going on here that it's not quite as finely milled and looks slightly drier than the Hermes. Now, keep in mind, my Chantecaille powder is old. It's probably about a year and a half old. So just something to note there that, some of that dryness might be from it getting a little bit older. But I think in general, the Hermes powder is just a little bit more. So when I say a little bit more about the Hermes, I tried really hard to find something just like it at a cheaper price point. But honestly, I think their Hermes powder is just really good. I think it's a really great pressed powder. Now, I have also started testing the new Givenchy Prisme Libre pressed powders. These are really nice as well. So let's just take a look at one of these. This one here is shade number 2, Satin Blanc. And this is going to have a very silky, lightweight texture on the skin as well. I haven't been able to do a side-by-side comparison for these powders yet, but, you know, I think, I think they're going to be a little bit different. I think they're both going to be nice. But one of the great things about the Givenchy is they do have 4 shades in each. So you can kind of pick and choose, can like use one powder specifically under the eyes and another one for another part of the face. So I feel like you can, you know, mix them all together and everything too. I feel like this one, these might be slightly more versatile because you do have kind of those options. And I can tell you that it is blurring on the face as well, but I will have to do a side-by-side comparison with the Hermes and those as well. So these are the 3 powders. Can you see them? We have the Hermes Plein Air. This is the Plein Air Nuage. This is the Chantecaille HD Perfecting Powder. And then this is the Givenchy in Satin Blanc. And I mean, it just feels, they all feel very silky. So I think they're all great powders, but there is something really nice about the Hermes one. Keep in mind, if you're familiar with the blushes and you know what that fragrance smells like, the powder is the same. Next, we have the Guerlain Bronzer. This is the Terracotta Light Bronzer. This is shade 00 Clair Rosé. We're not going to talk about this one a lot because I have already discussed this one, but I am still using it. I'm still enjoying it. I think it's a really nice color. And one of the ways I like to use it the most is the way I put it here today, where it's a little bit higher up on the cheekbones and then I accent it with the blush. So I think it just gives a little bit of depth to the blush to kind of highlight those cheekbones. And for somebody with my skin tone where bronzer doesn't necessarily always look natural, I think this is a way to kind of highlight those cheekbones and everything without looking like I have like bronzer on essentially. And moving on for blush today, I used the Jones Road Miracle Balm in Flushed. This is a limited edition shade and it is a pearly pink. I think it is a gorgeous, gorgeous shade. Let's go ahead and put this one right here. Now, this is a Miracle Balm. So if you've used these before, you know what they feel like. If you've used Egyptian Magic, that's kind of what I think these feel like. And this can stay a little tacky. You know, if you spread this out like I did down here, it will sink into the skin. You won't really feel it on your skin, but if you leave it built up like up here, it's going to remain tacky on the skin. So that may be something you like, it may not be. Now, scent wise, this has a scent. It's like an herbal fragrance. It smells like Egyptian magic to me. So that's kind of the closest comparison for consistency and color. You can see that or consistency and scent, but you can see it's going to be very thin when you get it. It's, you know, it's a nice product. The Miracle Balms in general, I still haven't, you know, totally figured out how to use them. I don't know whether I like them or not, to be honest, for you know, the majority of purposes. Just Glow Firefly, Jennifer from Just Glow Firefly, she loves them and she just did a whole video with all of them and how best to use them. And, you know, there are different ways that you would use different colors and so forth. So if you're interested in them, check out her video. But this one here I picked up because it is so much like a blush. And I have to say, I really love it. I love the color of this. I love the sheen that you get. You can use this as a blush and a highlight because it will remain dewy on your skin. I think it's going to be great for summer. And it's just, if you're going for like, if you don't even want to put makeup on for the day, you know, but you just want a little something on your skin, use this, or use a skin tint and use this and you're good. You can also use this like on your lips and stuff like that as well. So I think this particular shade I would recommend. I think this is a really great product. It's a huge container. It's 50 grams and these are made in the US, but it does have a 1.5 year shelf life. So overall, I think this one in particular, great product. Definitely check it out if you're interested in purchasing anything from their line. There are some other products I really like from them as well. So let me know if you're interested in seeing more Jones Road on my channel. And next we have the Hermes Plein Air Highlight in shade number 2, Mirage. And this and the powder were both made in Italy and they both have a 1 year shelf life. Now this highlight I've been kind of on the fence with because I have used different brushes with it. I think it gives a really nice subtle highlight and it's kind of like a beigey champagne kind of shade. and I think it's really beautiful. But when I use it with a typical brush, you know, I'm just getting a little bit of product up at a time. And well, it picks up plenty of product. It's not like it's too hard in the pan to pick up or anything, but it's just not that blingy or vibrant on the skin. It's a really great, subtle, everyday kind of highlight. But what I didn't know, and thank you, Jocelyn, for sharing this with me, is Hermes actually recommends using your fingers with this. So today I have a finger application with it, and you can see that it goes on really beautifully with the fingers. And I put a little bit of this over the Miracle Balm, and it performs well with that, kind of sticks there, adds a little extra sheen. I think it's a really nice highlight. So I have to say, I do really like this Hermes highlighter. And if they do come out with more shades that would work for me, I would pick them up. So I think this is a really great highlight. So overall, I have to say, I really like the Hermes highlighter. It's a good like, but it's not like to the love level. It's not like going to be my favorite. So I think it's a really nice product. I think it looks really nice on the skin. I think it's definitely something you can use every day. But just because, partly because of the color, you know, I would like something a little bit less golden personally. But that's going to be one of the, you know, that, and there's just others that I just gravitate towards more, but this is the highlight. So I think it's a really nice everyday shade, and you know, you can bling it out a bit for the night, but I do think it's a good product. Next up, I'm trying the Chanel eyeshadow palette in 204 Tissé Vendôme. And this is not a new palette, but it's new to me. I've always kind of shied away from this one because it is peachy, that kind of like orangey shade there, that melon shade. I always thought it wouldn't work well for me, but I've seen so many beautiful looks created with this that I did end up picking this up during one of the department store sales. And I have to say it's really pretty. So we do have kind of a soft mink brown followed by a slightly peachy ivoryish shade. So there's a little peachy tint to that. Then we have this kind of this like a cantaloupe kind of shade, you know, like the inside of a cantaloupe. And then we have a deeper brown, and this does have some cooler tones here. The browns run a little bit cool. So I think that balances out the warmth. You can see this is my first look with this palette, and I have to say that I really like it. The shadows are really smooth. This formula in particular, if you've used the Tissé formula, it's a little bit firmer in the pan, which actually lends itself to a really satiny, silky texture on the eyes and kind of this subdued satin finish. So you can see that the two shades kind of in the middle of my swatches, the kind of peachy ivory kind of shade and the cantaloupe shade, they look a little bit more metallic. Their finish has just a little bit more sheen to it than the two browns. The deepest brown definitely seems the most matte out of them, but I wouldn't say that any of them are a flat matte. They all have a little bit of sheen to them, and it's like a very subtle, sophisticated sheen. Overall, I have to say I'm happy with this quad, and I decided to try this one now because I want to see how this compares to the Imaginaire quad that's coming with the LeBlanc collection, which I've been kind of on the fence whether I want to get this or not, but I've decided I want to get it. So I wanted to try this one out and be able to compare them when that arrives. So let me know what you guys are interested in from the LeBlanc collection. But I actually, you know, that palette, at first I was like, no, too warm, but I've seen some things that made me reconsider. For mascara today, I used my favorite Sisley So Stretch in the brown. This is just a really nice separating and lengthening mascara. I use it all the time. The brown is kind of like my go-to daily mascara. For brows, I use the Givenchy Mr. Brow Pencil in shade 2 and the Mr. Brow Groom Gel, which, you know, this is like fantastic. I can see why it's a cult favorite for people, you know, fantastic products. And last up, we have a couple of lipsticks here from Merit. So Merit has recently come out with lipsticks. They are a clean beauty line, and these lipsticks were gifted to me, but I did not have any requirements for posting or anything like that for these. You know, they just offered to send them to me to try. So I've been using these since I got them a couple of weeks ago. And, you know, with all these lipstick launches, you know, I've been kind of trying them out in between. But I really like these. These are going to be a satin finish lipstick. They're a light to medium weight on the lips, you know, on the lighter side. And you can put these on more sheerly, as you can see from the swatches, and you can build them up a little bit more. So they're very comfortable on the lips. They're hydrating. I have to say, a lot of clean beauty lipsticks, especially at this price point, because these are $26 US each. A lot of them end up having like a scent that, you know, it's not like a fragrance, an added fragrance, but some of the ingredients, their scent kind of, it's not my favorite. This doesn't have that. So when you smell these, I was looking at the ingredients and they actually have papaya fruit extract in there. And I feel like that's what I smell a little bit. It's definitely not strong. I didn't actually notice it until I went and sniffed the lipstick. And another thing in here, they also have aroma or flavor added towards the end of the ingredients. So just something to note there. But I feel like it's just a very light, little bit fruity scent. Now these lipsticks are 3 grams each. They're called the Signature Lip, and I have 2 shades. I have Fashion, which is more of a berry shade, and Baby, which is more of a nude. So you know, their kind of slogan on the box says, it's so lightweight, you'll forget you're wearing it. And I have to say that's kind of true. I do feel like if you've tried like the Suqqu Sheer Matte lipsticks or the Givenchy La Rouge Sheer Velvets, those feel slightly more lightweight, but this would be like the satin counterpart to those with how thin and they feel on the lips. You know, they kind of soak in a little bit, so you're not really feeling lipsticky. So let's take a quick look at the packaging and some swatches. So you have kind of this amber color case with a gold tube here. This is plastic. This one here is Fashion that I'm looking at here. And this just goes in, you can see it clicks in. And then you've got, you know, a traditional lipstick style tube. And again, this is going to be the shade Fashion. So let's go over here to, let's see if I can get more. Not good at swatching lipsticks on this hand, but this one's here is Berry. Let's build that up a little bit more here so you can see the difference. But it's Fashion, but it's a berry shade. And you can see there's a little bit of plum in here, but it's really going to be more of a reddish berry. So this one, to me, if you take like a raspberry, let's say you take like 4 or 5 raspberries and you mix 1 blackberry into it and crush them together, that's kind of the color you get with Fashion. And the one I have on my lips right now is called Baby. And this is the nude shade. I also want to try Millennial. So I think during the Sephora sale, I'll probably pick up that one as well. But you can see that this is going to be kind of like a rosy nude. There's a touch of peach in it, but there's actually more rose in it. So it's a really beautiful, like, you know, I wouldn't say it's really cool toned, but it's leans a little cool. So I think it's a really beautiful, I mean, look at that on its own there. It's just a really beautiful, soft pinky nude. It kind of reminds me of the Pat McGrath Done Undone lip liner. Let's look at that. So here is Done Undone. So Done Undone is going to be a little bit more brown and a little bit warmer. And then this one here is Half Naked from Pat McGrath. And that one's going to be browner, but a little bit cooler. And just one more liner here. This is Starstruck from Pat McGrath, which is going to be rosier. But you can see it, yeah, it's a little bit, this is going to be a little bit rosier, but the level of warmth and coolness is going to be pretty similar. This is going to be slightly cooler, but not much. All right, so I hope this was helpful. Please let me know what you think about today's format. Overall, I think that everything that we kind of tried out today, you know, I like everything that I used today. Everything was nice. For me, I think the standout products today would be the Hermes Plein Air Nuage powder, the setting powder. I think that is really incredible. And you can kind of see on my face here This is the side right now that has the plein air versus the Chantecaille. I feel like even from a distance, you can see that the side with the Hermes just looks a little bit better. There's a little bit more radiance from it. And, you know, I feel like the way it reflects the light is just, it makes it a little bit more luminous. And I feel like I think blurring up close is pretty comparable, but I think from a distance, I feel like the Hermes looks like it's a little bit more blurred, and that might have something to do with the light reflecting qualities. So I feel like that's kind of the standout product here. Also really like the Suqqu Foundation. I do need to test this more, and I think, yeah, for me, that's probably the standout. If I had to pick one favorite thing from today's video, that would be it. So I hope this was helpful. Please let me know what you think, if you have any like comparison requests or anything like that. And I hope to see you very soon. So have a great day and stay safe and healthy.